What we got to do to get ready for Norwalk? What is needed in your truck?
I'm just waiting on cam from Crower and lifters from Crower.
And what's the delivery date on those? Do we know?
2 weeks ago it was 4 weeks, so 2 weeks.
Okay. Let's see. I've got to pull the transmission out this week. New torque converter's coming. Should be here early next week. Got to change all the gaskets. I'm going to change out those rockers too, since we had the problem with that one.
Yeah, I looked at those. The Scorpions that I have are actually 3/8 studs, so they're not going to work.
Okay. Is those the blue ones that are back there?
Yeah,
okay.
You're going to have to use, if you're going to, what we just need to do is take the orange ones with us, in case we do have an issue with yours breaking.
Okay, well, we'll go back and look at them and see if there's any more issues with the
those
ones.
orange ones are like no name.
Okay. All right. So we need to do that. Getting the transmission is going to be kind of an issue because it's really tight up in there. So we'll have to take that transmission tunnel that we just built and get it back out so we can get to all the bolts. And it looks like the cross member is welded in, but did you say you thought it was bolted in?
I think it's 2 bolts
on each side.
Bolts. Yeah.
All right. So pull the drive shaft and then get the transmission out. Kind of do a quick inspection on that. I know the oil pan, the oil, transmission oil needs to be changed, the gasket.
Yeah, you're going to have fun getting the oil pan off too. I think you may be able to just drop the idler arm and it may lower it enough to slide it out.
Okay.
So it's a few bolts there.
All right, well, you got time to do it right now?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So we drove down to North Carolina to pick up this Nova, right? When we got there, it wasn't what it was represented to be in the pictures. So we asked the guy as many questions as we could, but he didn't have a lot of answers. But one thing he did say was that it was a 408. And so I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. It must be a 400 block that's stroked out. When we got it back home, I ran the numbers on the block and I saw that it's actually a 350 block. I thought, okay, well maybe it could be stroked to a 408. Did a little bit of research and sure enough, it could be stroked to a 408. I thought, okay, well that's cool then. I know I haven't been taken for any kind of money or anything. Once we had the opportunity to pull the oil pan down, to change the gaskets, pull the tranny and all that stuff out. And it was a nightmare getting it off because if you know the first generation Novas, they have an oil pan that has a little slot cut in it for the steering linkage to go through. We took a look up in there to see what we can find. And sure enough, there was a forged crank, forged rods, and forged pistons, which is great. And we're off to a good start here already. It looks like they may have spent some money on this engine. So we looked and we could try to find some numbers of some sort on that crank. And it's an Eagle crank. We saw the logo and we realized that there were some numbers on that weight where the logo was at. Well, here's what we found. It said 350. So that tells us that either the journals are 350 or the crank is a 350, and that's all it is. So I'm pretty sure that all I have is a 350, not a 383 or a 408.
We're just going to check the pleats of the filter and make sure there's not any bearing material or anything in there. We already know the oil's kind of junk, which we're going to fix when you clean that pan out. You can compare this to the one that I did. I cut the one open on my motor on video. You can compare that. Oh. So that's not terrible. It's got, that could be rings. That definitely, that brown stuff's the old oil mixing in. There's not anything terrible in there that I'm seeing. Whenever I cut these open, I look through every pleat and just check to see if there's any bearing material. Like that. To give you an example of what you don't want to see, and you can see inside there, you see it inside those pleats, you got all that bearing material, debris, etc., etc. So that's what we're looking for in these pleats. We'll go through each one just to make sure that there's nothing. There's a small little chunk right there. To me, it's not that concerning. You also want to check to see if you have any RTV sealant, anything stuck in there. Could be a bad job, whoever installed the motor used way too much RTV and caused it to get in the oil pan, which we already know happened because the bottom of the oil pan has some chunks of the RTV in there. But I'm not seeing anything that's concerning here, so I'm going to call this good other than the old oil. And again, I'm fairly certain that that milky brown is from oil that's been setting for, 4 or 5 years, which would coincide to what the guy told us when we bought it.
So we just have 4 weeks to get our cars ready for Norwalk. I've got a lot of stuff I've got to do to mine, like the torque converter, the gaskets, and so forth. But the problem is that Cory's motor blew on our last test session. Not a good thing. Had to order a block, and it did come in, but we're still missing a lot of stuff, including a camshaft and lifters, all special order stuff. So the problem is that he decided he's going to take a little vacation with the family, and he's gone for a whole week. So I'm left here this week working on my car, and when he gets back, it's going to be about 3 weeks left before Norwalk, and I hope we can meet that deadline. Finally got my torque converter in today, and I'm very excited about it. I called Hughes Performance out of Phoenix, Arizona, and all I need to do is give him some information like my tire size, rear end gear ratio, type of transmission, type of carburetor, and size of the engine. As you know, we assumed we had a 408 because that was what we were told, and that's how I ordered this. But as we found out recently, it appears that I only have a 350, so hopefully it's not going to affect the performance ratio here. One thing that we noticed that before was that the engine was only stalling at 4,000, and it needed to stall a little higher than that due to the engine's power range. He told me this is going to stall about 5,200 to 5,400. So hopefully it'll make a big difference out on the track. So let's take a look inside and see what we got. Now this is the 8-inch Pro 4 torque converter. Oh, it is very heavy. It's very heavy, very solid, very, very well built. And again, this is custom made for my application. This is also made for the 350 31 spline input shaft. I highly recommend Hughes Performance on this. I'm excited to see what it's going to do for our performance out on the track. So, guess who decided to join us from their vacation? So how was your vacation?
Wasn't bad. Cedar Point for a week with the fam damly. It's a good time.
So while you were gone, I had my hands full out here. So what I did was I pulled the transmission, got the torque converter out, pulled the drive shaft, of course, because I had to pull the transmission. And then I cleaned up my oil pan and cleaned up my transmission as far as the outside of it and painted it.
What'd you do with the other 6 days?
The other 6 days I sat in the house. I sat in the house and watched it.
That's 1 day's worth of work.
Yeah, no, it was like 97 degrees out here, man. Yeah, I know. I walked out here and I was like fiddling around with everything, and the sweat was rolling off everything. But hey, listen, here's the good thing is I got a video of me pulling the transmission, and I want you to watch it. Tell me how it goes, because hey, I was by myself. I did it one man Joe here.
Yeah.
So all right.
It's better than a one-man Tony, I guess.
Yeah, one man Joe, one man Tony. That's right. So, are you ready to watch it?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. Roll the tapes.
Hey, this box is heavy.
Hey, welcome to my show. I'm going to review a product I've never used before.
And the two things I can say is it's heavy and well built.
Well built, heavy, but it looks good. Yeah. And I can give you the model number.
Yeah. Right? So the reason we chose this converter, I don't know if you've said it in there or not, but mainly we went with Hughes and told them all the specs, which I think you're saying here. Yeah. And then they produced this with the right stall for what they think is right between tire size, transmission, rear gear, etc., etc. But it is heavy and well built.
It is heavy and well built, and it's actually orange.
Yeah.
Maybe a reddish orange, like a reddish orange hue. You know?
Blood Brothers.
Blood Brothers.
It's like they knew.
Yeah. Is blood orange though?
Oh. Is it orange or red? It looks red to me.
Oh, there's the model number. That's good.
You do. You do. Some really good.
Oh, this is heavy. Yeah. Okay. It's got little notches in it here. This is where your bolts go, and look at that bottom ass. Yeah. Look at that ass. That's pretty good down there. Yep. Yeah, I really do look like I know what I'm talking about here. All right. Damn.
I got to check the model number of mine. Could pull it out. I think it's like a GM 94 or 92.
This is the number he gave me. I don't know what the difference is. It's the same size as yours.
Yeah, 8-inch.
All right, well, here we go. So this is me pulling out the drive shaft. This is where I had to adjust my girdle.
Yeah, you still need to paint that bar too, right there.
It's a little. Well, it's rust color now.
Yeah.
So watch this. Watch. I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna yank this thing out, and I gotta keep on. What was that just fell? Oh shit! One of the U-joint caps fell off. I think they actually both fell off. If the other one hadn't fallen off yet, it's getting ready to right now. Yeah.
Well, you're getting new U-joints anyway, so that's not a huge deal.
So I went around searching for it, and there it was. And looky there. Look at all those needle bearings.
For all you home shop mechanic guys, don't ever try to put those back in and try to. They never line up again.
Or if you want your kid to be occupied for a while,
what is it, like 180 pin pickup?
Yeah. It's like, hey, you really want to help me work on my car? Here, try this. All right. Well, here we go.
Did you lose that little?
Clip? No, it's back in there. Watch. Okay. I have it in my fingers. I have it like in my fingers.
Good tech tip. Always put your tool or put your hardware back where you found it.
There it is. See it? See it? There it is.
Right there.
So, oh yes, that was tight. That was really tight, and I was able to get this out. That's the linkage And then I realized that once I got the one bolt out, that there's another bolt behind it, so I had to take the pan shield off, and then got to the other bolt.
You know, you're doing all this work and maybe stirring up all this dust, and you have this big open oil pan right there.
Yeah, I know. So
I would have probably put that on before I.
Well, I had the oil pan was getting cleaned itself because it was really, really dirty. And watch, snip. Is that how you do it? You just snip those things up there. You don't like put plugs on them. You just snip.
That little wire. I wouldn't worry about that.
You don't worry about that little wire. You don't worry about that.
I tell you what, we're just gonna leave it as is. Go to the track, and then you hit the trans brake. In the floor. Right.
Well, what I need you to do, you get under the car and put the two wires together. He's my trans brake.
The human trans brake.
Yeah.
Taking oil filter.
No, taking the coolant lines off, and they were dry rotted, so I'm gonna have to get new lines, obviously, but they would not come off of there. So and you can't see it in the video because I cut it all out.
You may need to replace it. The fins are looking a little ragged in there.
You'll see. I was just looking at them. Look, they look a little ragged up there. Oh, there we go. Now that I got that part done, I was coming back down so I can get inside the car and start getting that tunnel that we built apart.
Another tech tip: when you build stuff, try to make it serviceable so that you can easily take things off to get to access everything.
That trans tunnel was so hard to put together because of the way the firewall was, but miraculously and not on purpose, I think we were able to put the sides and the top as removable so we can get to those bolts.
I bet a couple of those are probably pretty difficult to get to.
Yeah, the ones up underneath the dash, you got to use that angle drill to even get those out. And actually, the one at the very top, you have to use a little stubby screwdriver for.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting, back in.
Yeah, it will be.
Hopefully, those holes line back up.
And that one right there is right next to the gas pedal right there, and so I couldn't even use a drill there.
Did you have to remove the gas pedal?
No, so I just left it and I just used.
Oh, it comes out 3 pieces.
3 pieces, yeah.
All right. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so I'm saying it actually worked out pretty good. So the one bottom side stay there.
Yeah.
And there you go. Cool. See? Look how
I didn't know how we did things around here.
See how dirty that thing was? Anyways. So now I'm actually unbolting. There's the 4 bolts that I had at the top.
So how did you got all the bolts on the top and then you left 2 bolts in?
2 bolts towards the bottom, and that's when I put the safety stand underneath of it. But the flywheel shield was still on at this point too. I figure I can get it out without taking it off separately.
Yeah.
But once the transmission came down, it ended up flying off of there anyways, going halfway across the garage. But
well, whenever that transmission goes, we need to get you an ATI so you don't have to worry about any of those shields or one of those Denvire cases or something like that.
Yeah.
Those shields suck to put back on.
Yeah, they do. Well, once we get to that point anyways, I want to rebuild the firewall and all that stuff.
We can get a ballistic blanket. That'd be easy too.
It'd actually probably be easy to put it right over top of that.
Yeah.
There we go. Back up we go.
Yeah. Back that ass up.
Look at that. She does got a nice ass, doesn't she?
She does.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I noticed about her.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, she could twerk.
Same with my wife.
Well, she could twerk a little there. Come on. Come on, talk to Teddy Bear. Come on.
Safety third.
There we go. All right, so now we're going to be back under the transmission. Oh, there's the safety stand. The safety stand has 2 chains on it for.
You mean the transmission lift?
The lift stand, whatever. Yeah. What do we call it? I call it a support at this point because I got
13 gigawatts, 14 gigawatts, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Oh yeah, and here we go. I was pulling the bolts, and I noticed that the engine was turning every time I tried to do that.
Yeah.
I was doing it gentle. It doesn't look like it's gentle there, but it's gentle.
Yeah, you really should have probably used an impact on it.
Yeah.
Did you end up doing that? Oh, so they're threaded into the...
There's a bolt and a nut on there, yeah.
So the new one doesn't have that.
No.
It's just a bolt and a nut. There's no threaded into the...
no, I don't think so. I haven't looked at it that close, but I'm assuming it's the same as that.
Yeah, it ain't a big deal.
So I was able to get those off. And
these
last two bolts coming up, and then from there I knew I had to get the, obviously the trans cross member and stuff off, and that was a little pain in the butt because those bolts were actually rusted in there a little bit, and I had to pound them out.
But I did tell you it was bolted.
Yeah, it's definitely bolted.
Yeah,
One bolt on each side, and then the 2 on the actual mount itself.
What are we working on there? Oh, that's the cross member.
That's the one side of the cross member. There's the other side. Yeah,
Put
this
a little anti-seize on it.
Well, the bolts were all rusted, but I mean, this is good to show, you know, how you take a cross member out.
If you have a backyard built Nova, this is how it's removed.
Watch this thing.
Twing.
Oh, there's a bolt still attached to it on the wire. It's just dangling there.
That's what I do with all of my stuff. I just let it dangle by the wires and hold it.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we're not worried about structural integrity of the wire in there.
You don't worry about that.
What is that wire?
That's my ground wire for the whole chassis.
Yeah, that's perfectly okay to dangle by.
Yeah. Well, it was trying to reach the ground, so, it's like, look, help me get back to my ground. Help me get back. All right, watch. This is like a big to do here. This thing would not break free for anything, and you can just see me going back and forth, back and forth.
So what I usually do in this scenario is, because your motor is actually trying to lean back too, I let that stand come down about 3/8 of an inch or a quarter of an inch, and then I'll wiggle it until it falls onto the stand.
Well, you notice that the stand just went down about 3 inches by itself.
I also noticed there's a chain dangling from the stand. There's supposed to be...
There's 2 safety chains, but I made a judgment of manly powerness here and decided that, hey, you don't need that little chain.
I told you, safety third.
Safety third, yeah. See, I got the other chain sitting there, though. I mean, it's
Is it connected to anything?
Well, I think that's what I'm looking at right now. It's connected, potentially now, yeah.
So you were just hoping that it was balanced enough to stay on.
I felt like if something was to happen, I would be able to use my strength
or
to
just
grab the transmission.
You know what you should have done was you should have left the cooler hook back up and just let the transmission dangle by it.
It would have stopped it, at least for a little.
You could have done all the work with it just dangling. It would look like icicle lights underneath your car. Everything's dangling by something.
It would at least stop the inertia on the way down. It wouldn't hit the ground as hard. Oh, there we go. We finally got it loose and got to bring it down a little bit. It was stuck evidently on the dowel pins. I just couldn't get it free from there.
So another thing I usually put on this, we're going to be servicing this a lot, so it doesn't matter. But if it's a car that you're going to be using, you know, for an extended period of time, I put a little bit of anti-seize on the dowel pins so that they slide on and off.
That makes a lot of sense. We're probably going to do
that. But, you know, when you're doing race stuff, we're going to be pulling that transmission in.
Oh, yeah.